Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. For those of you who watch me regularly, we're going to start something brand new. And don't worry, I'm not going away from reviewing new and used cars, trucks, and SUVs. But so many people have a build series on their YouTube channels, and since the opportunity has made itself available for me to have the same thing, well, we're going to do just that. I don't know how often we'll get to post in this series. As parts come in and things happen here in the shop, I will definitely be adding new videos every step of the way. But this is an original 1963 Corvette. Now, for the purist out there who may have a fit and say, "That's not an original, I can see by what's behind you." Well, it may look that way, but this car, as soon as it came off the assembly line and was purchased, the original owner took it to a chassis shop and had it converted to a race car. That wasn't that terribly unusual back in those days because you really didn't have full tube chassis like you do with race cars now and everything. So this was an original 63 Corvette that was immediately converted to a race car. I don't know for sure what class it ran in. For those of you who might be curious about that, my guess would be super stock, most likely, especially back in the 60s. That's likely where it went. Now, as far as the history of the car, this actually is my dad's car. He traded, if you saw the 1953 resto mod that he did with the Corvette that he had a while back, I think we shot that video in 2020. He actually was going to sell that car, and the owner of this 63 popped up and said, "Hey, would you like to trade?" So that's exactly what they did. They basically swapped. Pretty cool deal. Now, there is no engine or transmission in this car. It was originally, or I shouldn't say originally, but the previous owner did race this car, and I don't know that he knew that much about what he was doing, because here's a couple of interesting bits of information concerning its history, most recent history. He would actually leave the starting line with a 2-speed power glide in second gear because it was pulling the front end so much. And as far as I know, we haven't run a lot of door cars. We used to drag race quite a bit, but it was typically full tube chassis race cars, rear engine dragsters. We had an altered roadster that was an ex-alcohol funny car before we put a roadster body on it. But I think you could adjust the 4-link to calm that problem down. And it did have wheelie bars on it. They came with the car. I'll show you what those look like. They're not on the car right now, but all of that stuff will come as we add it back to the car. It has put some new tires on the rear because it came with slicks. Didn't want to run slicks on the street, so basically these are street slicks, I guess you could call them. They are 31 by 18 by 15, so 15-inch rims. And I'll show you, I put the measuring tape behind one of the tires to show you that it is 18 inches wide. Pretty cool deal there. And of course it has a shortened rear end underneath it. This isn't going to be a race car. It's going to be a pro street car. In fact, when Dad first took delivery of this car, it had a full roll cage in it, even a funny car cage. And being that this isn't a pro modified type car with the stock door, that is a very narrow opening. I tried to get in and out of the car with the steering wheel even off, which it is a quick disconnect. It was hard to do that. So he cut the cage out and everything, and has added a small roll bar in the back that he had from the 53 Corvette build just to kind of give it a racy look. But let's talk a little bit about what he's done so far to this point. As of right now, the car has been completely rewired. He's waiting on a new dashboard and some gauges to show up. He has replaced the steering column and several other items here, including, being that it was a race car, it didn't have some of the items that it needs to be street legal. And by the way, this car is ready to go on the street. Of course, it just needs to be finished. But he's added back the windshield wipers, put the windshield wiper motor in. And the interesting thing about that particular windshield wiper motor that's in this car is that it's made for this type of setup so that the distributor will clear, and so will the left side cylinder head. Kind of an interesting little setup there. And if you want to know the parts and where they came from and all that kind of stuff, I'll try and get a list of that as we move forward. But everything's been wired, everything works. The windshield wipers, the tail lights, the blinkers, the hazard lights, all that stuff is here. I'll give you a quick look around the car. But one thing that's very interesting, my dad's always been kind of a real-life MacGyver. He can fix anything, comes up with some really ingenious ideas, and I thought this was kind of cool how he set this up. If he needs to test something that he's wired to make sure, for instance, that the windshield wipers are going to work after he's wired everything up, he has a battery sitting here on this little step ladder, and all you got to do is reach over here and put the positive cable on, and then you can test everything out. Pretty quick, pretty simple, but still pretty much out of the way, at least for the time being, for everything that he's doing. And for those who are curious about the whole front end being off of this car, no, it hasn't been cut off. It was built this way. This is not uncommon for drag racing cars to have the setup where not only does the front end come off, but a lot of them, the doors will come off too. This particular model doesn't do that, but that isn't unusual. So that'll make getting the engine into the car a whole lot easier. Don't have to worry about, oh, am I going to scratch up the paint or something like that, and putting the engine in. And by the way, speaking of the engine, there's a reason why I haven't said anything about what is going into this particular car. So here's the deal. The first person to guess correctly as to what type of engine is going in will win a Vehicle Visionary t-shirt. So guess down in the comments, and we'll see who wins the contest. Now, one of the more interesting challenges that is going to be faced by my dad, and I'm going to be helping him out along the way with everything, so we'll both be dealing with this, is how to put the headlights back in. Obviously, we're going to have to cut a space out and retrofit everything back in basically that way. So it will be kind of an interesting thing. Obviously, all of this was changed out to make this a full-blown race car back in the day, so that it was as light as possible. In fact, the car weighs about 2,700 pounds, should, with the engine and transmission in it and everything like that, so pretty light. And for those who watch me regularly, yes, we're going to do a full series on this car, but when it's finished, I will do my typical review, including a test drive, to show you everything about the car once it's complete. And while this is not a split window, this is a hardtop convertible, so this entire top can be removed from the car. It's not that terribly heavy, but it's kind of awkward, so while I do think that one person could move it, it's just the size of it that makes it require two people to get it on and off, but it's not that terribly hard to use. And so we'll eventually get some pictures of all that kind of stuff as we go along, and so we'll show you what's here and how everything works. If you have any questions, ask them down in the comments, and they can either be answered down there, or maybe we'll make a second video with all of this and have the video answer those questions depending on how many of you ask. But stay tuned, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, so you can see the progress as we take steps forward with this 63 Pro Street Corvette build. I appreciate each and every one of you for supporting the Vehicle Visionary YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your time, guys. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.